Dynamic Seminars, the management and training consultancy presents Southern Africa's leading success lecturers.
Right, good morning everybody. That was pathetic for a Friday morning. Morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Effective People Skills. The only rule today that is not negotiable, everything is negotiable, one thing is not negotiable, and that is today you've got to have fun. You know, the learning experience can be that heavy kind of experience where the lecturer goes and stands behind the podium, and around about 3 minutes later you fall asleep, and about 3 hours later you go home. The alternative is we can laugh, we can enjoy ourselves. Are you all happy with that? Fabulous. Right, welcome to Effective People Skills. Have you noticed that not everybody is exactly the same? Anybody notice that? And that some people kind of like behave differently. For example, have you noticed that some of the people that you meet tend to be enormously outgoing? You know, outgoing, gregarious kinds of people, and other people tend to be very, very reserved. Now, folks, let me just give you a little bit of advice as to what I would like you to be thinking about during the course of our time together. We're going to be going through a whole batch of stuff together, but what I'd like you to be thinking about all the time is a couple of different people, right? Number one, I want you to think very specifically about you. All right, so where I put up words, like for example, outgoing and reserved, I want you to ask yourself, do you think that you are more outgoing or more reserved? So number one, I want you to have you in mind, right? Number two, I would like you to have in mind your significant other, all right? And as we go through the words, ask yourself, is your significant other, husband, wife, whatever it is that person, once again, the choice of the different words that we've got. Is that person more outgoing, more reserved? Then I want you to think in terms of a very, very important person, and that is your boss. Okay, think in terms of your boss. And then lastly, I would like you to think in terms of somebody that you don't get along with that well. Yeah, kind of like personality clash. All right? So I want you to think in terms of 4 people. So as I say, words like this, for example, outgoing and reserved. Ask yourself the question, myself, my significant other, my boss, and a person that I don't get along with. All right. Have you noticed some people that you meet tend to be enormously relaxed, very chill kinds of people, and other people tend to be enormously demanding. When do you want it? Yesterday. Right? And we find those kinds of differences in people. Have you noticed that some people tend to be incredibly patient, and other people suffer from a condition that is called hurry sickness? You know, you see people standing in the supermarket or at the post office, and some people stand online and they're busy talking to people, and you know, totally chilled, relaxed, and patient. Other people, you see them standing there, and after a second or two, they're dancing on their toes, and a minute later, they go, yeah, we'll come back later. Right? And we find that some people are very patient, very impatient. Have you noticed that some people tend to be enormously factual, while other people tend to be much more emotional? You're asking yourself the question, yourself, your significant other, your boss, and your person that you don't get along with, right? It's important to be able to try and understand these differences in me, as well as the people that I interact with, to be able to more effectively get along with people. All right, let's go back and try and find out, where does power come from? Where does power come from? And I'd like to go back, let's just go back, I don't know, for convenience sake, let's just call it 5,000 years. 5,000 years ago, there was one source of power, and that was physical power, right? I was stronger than you, therefore more powerful, right? Or I could throw a spear or use a sword or whatever more effectively than you, and therefore I was more powerful, right? And that was the base of power at that time. As we move through time, let's go back now kind of like 3,000 or 4,000 years, we were then in the era of class power. What do we mean by class power? We find that royalty had more power than the upper class, which had more power than the middle class, which had more power than low class. And if you were born into a low class, you stayed in low class. Right? There was no such thing as moving out of class. Yeah, you were born as a low class person. That's where you kind of like lived for the rest of your life. But that also changed. And if we go back, we're now looking at around about the last 1,000, 1,500 years. And then we started moving into the era of money power. And people were able, because of ingenuity, because of entrepreneurial spirit, whatever, were able to gain money. And as a result of gaining money, were able then to gain power. Now, all of those three are still there, right? A power base never disappears, but others become more important. Let's go back around about 100 years ago, around about the turn of the last century, we moved into the era that is called knowledge power. Knowledge power. Guys, you've got to get yourself an education. Those people that have got an education, they're going to be able to buy themselves out of class. You are going to be able to be a better person because you've got education. And that became very much the power base. If we have a look, and you'll notice the periods are becoming a lot shorter all the time. We notice that around about the mid-50s, we moved into the era that we're currently living in right now, and that's the era of communication power. And that's where you started finding that there were people that had this ability to communicate more effectively. And if we stop and look at some examples, let's look around about the early